Well, hello everybody. I'm Brian Keith. I just want to welcome everybody here to our first virtual workshop. It's a virtual charrette, but charrette's kind of a fancy word for just a fancy French word for charrette. So that I see a lot of familiar faces, kind of virtually here. That I've seen before. I also see some new faces, so it's good to see so many people joining us. And so this really represents kind of a switch or a pivot in our whole planning for the North Downtown Athens, Bethel, Holmes area that we transitioned to this virtual approach. So if we go to the next slide. So I just want to introduce who are going to be on this session. So again, I'm Brian Keith from JHP, and then Buck's here. Buck is from W&A Engineer, civil engineer firm, well respected there in Athens. They're one of the partners helping us with this. And then Christina Davis, she might wave her hand over there. Christina Davis is a moderator. So all our sessions as we go through this week, we're going to have presenters and moderators. The moderator is kind of the hall monitor. They're going to keep us in line. They're going to monitor questions and things like that. So, and then we have special guests. So Steve Decker, I believe I saw you on from Athens County Public Works, and Stephen Bailey. I can't see everybody per se, but I'm assuming you're on. So one thing you probably noticed is that you're muted, and we are going to unmute guests. But again, Christina is the hall monitor on that. And Tim Griffith from Athens County Public Works should be here as well. And Carol Myers, and I do see Carol, our incoming Athens County Commissioner for District 8. So if we go to the next slide.
So I'm just gonna...
Yeah. And the other thing, we want to keep this informal and lively, fun if possible, and we're trying to replicate an in-person workshop charrette, and we can tell you that that's a challenge to put on virtually and digitally. So the point of that is anytime you want, like Christina was doing, please jump in, say something, raise your hand.
Yeah, so surprise, I interrupted. Welcome everyone. I wanted to just give you a couple of the how-tos. So if anyone is new to Zoom, I want to give you a second to see that I did chat everyone. So you should have received a little welcome chat. We're going to use the chat function today. If we can, if we get too lively, you don't feel comfortable speaking up, or you don't want to interrupt, you can always chat, and I'm going to be kind of monitoring that so that your voice is heard. I don't think we have too many participants here. I would say that in general, if you can mute your line if you're not talking, and I think you can unmute yourself at this point. I have the power to mute you again, but we do want to make sure that everyone feels free to chime in and that this is more conversational. So I'm going to first ask if everyone could find the chat. If you feel free to sign in so we know who all is here, and just, that helps us all track for purposes of following up after. Also recognize that this session is being recorded. So if you don't want your home living room in it, you can just hide video. But we are recording, and that is so that we can put it back on our website later. We want to make sure that anybody who was not available, that's one of the positive things of doing this virtually, is anyone who's not available at this time can always go back and watch everything. They'll have the chat transcript as well, and then they'll have an opportunity to comment on the website. So I think that would be really helpful. So again, if you do want to chime in and you feel it's appropriate, feel free to just speak up. If you don't feel comfortable, you can chat it. And then there's another function here. It's the wonderful little smiley face in the bottom right of your screen, reactions. You can, if you like what Brian's saying, you can give a thumbs up. You can give a thumbs down, I think. You can clap. So there's a couple different ways you can interact here. So let's just feel free. I'd also say that in general, we want to be as respectful as we can of time. So we did try to get started on time, or as close to time as we could. We are going to end at about an hour from now, or from the 4:30. We have another session tonight, so we want to make sure everybody has a break between them to grab dinner, put kids to sleep, etc. But if you have a lot to say and you feel like this is maybe not the forum, Please know that you can get in touch with any of us, and we will be more than happy to have an on the side conversation with you and schedule that at your convenience. So we want to make sure that everybody is heard. So if you are speaking and it's a little too much, just recognize that we may ask that we go into a private session with you later, and that way we can wrap up this call as a group call. Okay? Give me the thumbs up. Okay. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Brian.
So, next slide. So some things I want to point out about this presentation, all the ones that are going to come up this week, is really, these are all what ifs. I mean, we're just talking about possibilities, big ideas, conceptual. Nothing is decided. Nothing is set. Sometimes something might look more set or more refined. Nothing. We are all listening. This is all part of our listening. If you remember back to some of my earlier workshops, you know, I kind of preach this mantra of listen, learn, design. That's what we're doing. We're listening, learning, designing, and coming back. And so, and what these sessions represent are some of the main themes and ideas that came up during our earlier interviews and workshops. And we've been analyzing those, and those have led to this virtual sessions, which will lead to the next steps and the next steps. And I'm going to go over those in a little detail. So if you go to the next slide. And so a lot of what I'm talking about here, you know, a lot of people are familiar with this already, and probably more, there's people that are intimately familiar, but also people that aren't. But remember, we're putting this on the website. So we want to make sure that if somebody's in the middle of the night in their pajamas looking at this, they get a good overall picture of this thing. So that's why some of the, I'm telling some of this, that's why some of this is in here. But remember, this master planning effort is centered on sort of College Avenue, Bethel Village, and the Athens Housing Authority land there at HOYT and College. So that's sort of, College Avenue is the spine, but really the study is actually focusing on a bigger area, as you can see in that magenta outline. And really it represents the connections, the linkages. How is this an extension of downtown? This is a view kind of looking south, downtown Athens in the background there, and kind of pointing out a bunch of key pieces in the neighborhood here. And, you know, the planning here envisions that we will have a mixture of housing, land densities, uses. Mixed income housing will be important, but where they go and exactly what they are, that's not set. That's why we're doing this planning, to come up with a vision and a guide and a roadmap for how this transformation will take place. So this was funded through the 2020 SPLOST funding that was passed in December of 2019. And obviously this work is all going to be done in phases. And this master planning is really the first step. So like anything, you have to take that first step before you of any journey. And eventually, we will be coming back, well, shortly we'll be coming back with sort of draft ideas. Then we will have some presentations to the neighborhood and the public of more, not final, but final draft ideas. And then eventually, Athens County, the council and the mayor and the, in terms of a government adoption, will take place formally. And that will probably, we've got a little timeline here in a second. Actually, next slide, please. That kind of goes over some of this, how we started. December actually kicked it off. January, we had interviews. February, we had those workshops that people remember, where I see a lot of familiar faces. Great time. And then, you know, the spring hit, and we were all kind of, the whole world really was turned upside down, right? And with that, we were trying to figure out, how do we keep this going? What happens? And we really did pick up and start doing technical meetings and a lot of behind the scenes work and a lot of thinking and analysis. And with that, we also conducted some online surveys that have been on the website. And you'll keep hearing me mention the website over and over and over again, because that's an important pivot of how we're dealing with this. And we've also done some in-person resident surveys at Bethel homes, and we're preparing to do some at the College and HOYT apartments. So we've had a combination of things, and you'll see some reports of some of that coming through. Late September, October, beginning of October, we hope to come back with some draft conceptual ideas. And then again, listen, learn, design. We'll say, hey, did we get it right? Are we hearing things right? Do we have things? And we'll take that input then, and we'll lead to October, November-ish. We'll start for public review and refinement, and then coming back December, and it may get pushed into latter of the year and beginning of next year in terms of the formal adoption of things.
So I just have to chime in because what Brian is saying in architect speak is that there's a final, there's a final, there's a final draft final, and then there's a final. And so we want you all to be along with us along the way as he comes up with all those finals. But clearly we're not there. So we just wanted to review that some of y'all were able to join us back in February. We've been working at it for a while. Clearly COVID threw us for a loop, but hopefully by this fall, when it's cooler weather, we can safely meet outside and you can see some more pinups of some ideas. So
right.
Final,
and then, to that point of, it's kind of what is, right? So what is final? Remember, in this master planning process, we're coming up with a vision and a guide for what the neighborhood is. And even that, in essence, is an evolving thing of what final means, right? But there will be a final master plan that is adopted, but that is a roadmap. But I just want to review some of this because I know I see a lot of familiar faces, but there's some new faces. And I'm not going to dwell on it, but in February we had our workshop sessions where we had a resident focus session, and we had a community focus sessions there in the neighborhood. Everybody remembers all the maps, people that were present. We had lots of tabletop exercises that we did. We started thinking about what and needs, where they might go. All that work and all future work is going to be on our website. So if you're just joining right now, hey, go there and take a look, www.ndAthensPlanning.com, right? You'll hear that over and over again. It's all there, and it will continue to be there. You can comment on what was done. You can comment on what's going to be done now, and you can comment on future. Next slide. So with that, we did a lot of just needs and talking, discussion, and listing, and we did the actually tabletop exercises that people see. And some of that I want to point out, there's a lot of things that came out of that. And obviously the community, the residents, there's a lot of social needs, civic needs. And so one of the things we're going to be doing in this whole process is we have to make decisions about where things go and what we can do. And the reality of things is not everything is necessarily possible. We have to make decisions. We, meaning the community, makes decisions about those things. And so, and some of them may be hard decisions, but there's going to be financial realities, development realities. There's limited, literally, if we took every need that was kind of expressed, that would take up all the land that's there, right? And so we have to make the needs. And some fundamental things, I'm going to let Christina maybe, or jump in on this, but, housing that's there will be replaced, right? And we're replacing it in a mixed income environment. So we have some fundamental things that are going on, and there's a commitment that this will be a mixed income, mixed use community. So I just want to point those things out. A lot of great stuff that came out. And so with that, obviously the world turned upside down in the spring with the COVID-19 and the Corona pandemic. And we had a website, we had Facebook, we had things going on, but we really, we had to supercharge these things, and really kind of pop the hood up and work on these things. And how do we really enhance our website so that it could become really a hub and a portal? It becomes much more robust.
So I'm going to ask a quick question, and I'm not going to do an annoying poll for anybody, but you can go ahead and unmute yourself and just verbally tell me who on this line has taken one of our surveys. I got Carol said yes.
I see some in the comments. I see some thumb up and great. Hey, they're still there. You can still take them.
Yeah, so I was going to just do that little plug. Please go there and take them. That would be really helpful. But also just participating tonight is a good way to get your input in. So let's get to the meat of it. Yeah,
and with that, as a follow-up to those February sessions, we were working and thinking of that. And so we started urban analysis. We started looking at what were the issues and big picture, what ifs that came up out of it. And we started translating that into some graphic exhibits about where things are, where things might be, connections, idea of reestablishing the historic grid, uses, framework. We heard fire station was like something that came up over and again as a community center. We also heard that, people cross the street in a lot of different places. So we heard kind of this list over here on the slide. You see the slide. A lot of things that started coming up about College Avenue and safety and walkability, the idea of Main Street, where the front door was, open space, arts and culture is a big thing. There's both a lot in the community already, but also expression of what is the history of this. And sustainability and civic uses, and there's a lot of resources already there and how they might be redeveloped or repurposed. Next slide. And again, we continue this sort of graphic urban analysis, and really it's just something we do as urban planners and designers. But again, starting to think about where things might be and how things might be oriented and how we might leverage existing initiatives and existing things that are going on. There's a lot of work going on in Jackson Street Art Walk there, and there's discussions of innovation centers. There's a lot of things going on, and we want to make sure that we are partnering and leveraging all that energy and activity in the best way possible. But first we have to sort of think about that. And with that, a key thing that happened is sort of rose to the top of everything with these kind of key issues that led to the sessions that are happening now. So the next 3 days are topics of complete streets, open space and parks, exploring civic parcels, transportation, transit, sustainability and green strategy, and artlets. Those are all kind of ideas that germinated and started earlier, and they've risen to the top, and they've helped from the framework of how we're doing these workshops, with today being the first one on complete streets. So the next slide, please. And so with that, we've also been doing lots of sketches, because that's what we do as urban designers. And sometimes they're messy and crazy, and I get joked all around, both Christina and in the office, about my handwriting, or it's kind of hieroglyphic, right? But and what we're really doing is just sort of thinking about where things might go, how we might connect. Again, nothing's set. This is the throw it on the wall. Let's just see what sticks. You know, anything's possible now, right? When it's on a piece of paper. Although some of these are done digitally, right? Paper is kind of a new thing in this world, as we can see as we're on here now. And next slide. And with that, again, we continue to kind of refine, and there's some ideas here, and we've got multitude of ideas. None of these are the ideas by any means. These are just big thoughts, but thoughts of like central greens and how do we incorporate a framework, maybe in a more north-south connection and the next slide is one that looked at maybe more promenades and linking green spaces and linking things together in a more east-west. Again, and then where uses and where things might go. So just lots of ideas, that everything's in play. So go to the next slide. So again, today's topic is complete streets, and really College Avenue, but also all the streets. And I know I want to point out that, the mayor and the council has adopted complete streets as a policy guide for Athens. And so Carol and others, we're going to be calling on you guys throughout, and please feel free to jump in, raise your hand, or speak up. And in fact, some of you probably are much more adept at some of the complete street thoughts and what it means for Athens than probably even we are. And we want to hear. Again, remember, we are listening and taking notes and recording all this. And so this is all, it's all meant for us to have the best possible plan that the community wants, that you as a community envision for this neighborhood. So if we go to the next slide. So again, a lot of people understand complete streets, and Carol could jump in, or anyone, but really, in my mind, complete streets are streets for everyone that encompass a range of everything. How do we design streets that are good for walking, biking, bus, vehicles, and not excluding anything, but not making them one more dominant than the other? Anybody want to add to that? Or, I mean, I've got some examples, but.
I'll add to that. Is it Carol? Can I say something? Am I handing?
Yes.
Yeah,
please,
yeah.
please.
No, because it's taken me a long time to really get my head around this. And so complete streets. And so for anyone who's listening, who's like, what is this complete streets, or how does it change it? I mean, the simple way of thinking of it is it's a shift from thinking of streets as just for cars and vehicles to thinking about streets for pedestrians, people who are walking, people who are biking, people who are rolling, people who are skating, on any kind of transportation, and cars as well. So it's a shift over because it just took me a while to really grasp. And it's really a way of designing and looking at streets. And a lot of it's what we're already doing in Athens and places. Anyway.
That's an excellent summary. It really is that kind of simple, right? It's just a mental shift.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's saying, hey, no cars, but we're also saying it's not just for cars. And how do we make a safe, walkable environment?
And
anybody
Brian,
else?
can we let Steve, I think Steve Decker had his hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. Complete Streets has been around for many, 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 many years. Being an old man, as I am in my 70s, when I worked for the state of Florida, we started some of this in the state of Florida, but we followed the federal highway terminology, which is almost exactly the same, calling it multimodal. And when I say multimodal, and I like what Carol said, it does address every user of the roadway. And you do not want to sacrifice anything for any mode. And let me give you a classic example. When we started in Florida years ago, they just decided to go from curb to curb and do all this, and they ended up with 9-foot lanes for a driving lane. For a VW bus, that's okay, but it's not good for a city bus. And so being Complete Streets is critical that it is multimodal for all modes. So I just want to add to that, please.
No, that's very good. That's very good. That's why we want to tap all these great resources that are there in Athens with you guys. And Buck, you were going to mention something. You started to.
Oh no, I just wanted to point out. Want to make sure we recognize Steve's comments.
Right,
Thank
right.
you.
So you know, I'm relying on our moderator Christina to make sure she catches all that, because I don't quite see everybody up here, you know, in this Zoom world. I'm not in a meeting where we could just reach out in the audience, right? But it's a different world we're in, right? But if we go to the next slide. And again, we're trying to just show some examples and explain to people the possibilities, right, of what this means. About that, it means really some sense of places and active edges and sidewalks. And if you just use a little bit of imagination, you can envision some spots on College perhaps, or where something like this might happen up and down. And we're just trying to, again, we're throwing the what ifs, throwing things on the wall and see what might stick, right? If we were in a workshop, we'd have these pinned up on the wall. We'd have different ideas to set a tone. I'm gonna let Buck kind of talk about some of the more existing condition things, because they're very, very important. And you'll see in a minute why we need to grasp this in terms of what we do.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So if you look at the slide, right now that's the existing conditions along College Avenue. We have about 60 feet of right-of-way. There's about 30 feet of pavement, an 8-foot boulevard, grassed boulevard on either side, 5-foot sidewalks, and a little bit of, maybe about 2 feet behind the sidewalk worth of green space. There's also some overhead utilities along the western side of College Avenue. And so next slide. And in this slide, you can see a street view of College Avenue. Looking north, the photo to your left, you can see College Avenue as it approaches HOYT Street. The Athens Clark County Fire Department property is on your right. And then the image to your right, you can see College Avenue again facing north as it approaches Madison Avenue. Hotel Indigo is on your right, and you can see some on-street parking there, some street trees and sidewalks. All right, next slide, Brian. And then this is the intersection of College Avenue and HOYT Street. So you can see from this image that there's not a lot of pedestrian-friendly crosswalks here. We know from comments that we've received, there's a lot of interaction between the residents of Bethel Homes and Lay Park and Linden House and the fire hall. So this is not really an ideal crossing for pedestrians. The speed limit is fast. There's no traffic light, stop sign, or really cues to cue the driver into, or vehicles into slowing down or visualizing pedestrians or multi-use along the street. And then it's also at the bottom of the hill where traffic is naturally a little bit faster. Next slide, Brian. So, Brian, I think this one is yours, right?
Yeah. You know, again, we've just been starting that thinking process, pulling out a little bit of paper and sketching about, hey, what if? How can we make it a safer intersection? And just some traffic calming things that might go, and envisioning how we might approach it. Next slide. I'll let you kind of continue on this, Buck, talking about Madison.
Yeah, so this is Madison Street near its intersection with College Avenue. You can see the fire hall to the right of the image. And you can see here also that the speed is fast in this location. There's really no traffic light. We've also learned that this is a popular spot for pedestrians to cross College Avenue. And there's no crosswalk. There's nothing there to cue vehicular traffic to slow down or as they approach. You know, what we see is maybe an opportunity for complete streets.
Well, some of those got repeated here, but again, one of the things coming up is that maybe we put some emphasis on other streets beside HOYT. You know, that maybe Madison and Strong become more important streets and more important crosswalks, and disperse some of the crossings so that no one place is overcrowded, and also that maybe not having HOYT be a primary because it's at the bottom of the hill. There's some advantages of that, and I'm going to show some other interesting things in a minute here. But next slide.
Is that a sentiment that folks on this call share, that the danger of the HOYT intersection? Is that a no? I'm getting, okay, I got a yes from some on chat.
I'm going to say yes. I actually used to park over there before I was in social work. And I parked in those side spaces that were just mentioned in front of the Hotel Indigo. And I walked to downtown from there several days a week and walked home very late at night. And it was very sketchy. It's not well lit. There's not sidewalks everywhere in that area. I definitely felt like cars were speeding past me. They didn't see me when I was walking down to my car. Yeah. And I was walking to a parking space, you know, like, I mean, it was legal to park there and it felt unsafe. So
okay.
Definitely.
That was you parking in front of the Indigo and walking towards downtown.
Yes, I used to, there's like those 5 or 6 parallel spaces that are like free parking right there on the side.
Right.
And I would oftentimes use those spaces. Yes, right there where that white truck is parked. And then if those spaces were full, I would go even further down and park on the other parallel spaces that if you take a left right there, I think it's on HOYT past the fire department. And there's some more free parallel spaces there as well. And I used to park there and that would be even further of a walk. And yes, if you were to take a right there, yeah. There's even more, there's more parallel spaces right there. And I always felt unsafe at night. I mean, the cars are flying. There's not enough stop signs. It's not well lit.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think you're right. Are those formalized spaces on HOYT or are those informal on-street parking?
Yeah. No, they are marked off. They're like true parallel spaces.
Okay. That's really good input. We've heard the same on HOYT as a cut through. People are kind of flying around that corner.
They fly towards the Council on Aging and kind of whip around.
Yeah. Yeah. And into it, we've heard. So there's that. I do want to ask, HOYT as an intersection though, am I the only one who's jaywalked across? Can I say that?
No, I did it almost every day. I did it almost every day when I parked there.
Okay, I don't know all the local players, so I'm really nervous saying that on the call. But you know, walking across there, that's the main question I do want to ask though. Like, if anybody walking from the fire station over to the medical clinic or just crossing the street around HOYT, I mean, what we've heard in the resident surveys of that we've conducted at Bethel and just in general is that folks will walk yeah, further towards downtown to cross just because of the safety situation at Hoyt. So I'm curious if anybody else has anything to say about particularly that intersection of College and Hoyt. And you can always say it later. That's fine.
This is, can you hear me? This is Kelly with Lake Park Community Center.
Hey, Kelly.
Just based off of, from my perspective, when we have a lot of kids crossing that College Avenue coming to Lake Park, most of the time they are crossing up closer to Madison, but there's no safe way for them to get across. And a lot of times, I mean, it may be a 5-year-olds all the way up to adults, you know, crossing to get over to Lake Park or the playground or the basketball court or whatever they're coming over for. So it would definitely, I think, with the entrance being as close as it is to Madison, I mean, I know it can be changed, but that's a common cross area for the kids.
That's a really interesting point. And we're going to show some things that actually enlightened us on that as well. So I
Could I
appreciate
interject
that.
something? Could I interject something,
Yes.
please?
Yes.
Of course.
A couple things that the traffic engineer in me keeps popping out as we talk about this, because I've got 40 years as a traffic engineer. And what, there's two things that I'd like to talk about. If you have a need right now, since I'm the director right now, if you have a need for crossings with kids crossing right now, I need to know, because I can do something temporarily until you're done with your study to help those kids. And I'd like to do that. That concerns me as a traffic engineer. And I know we're not there yet, but I want to talk about the stop signs. I keep hearing stop signs. I do want to make sure everybody understands stop signs are not for speed control. Okay, stop signs do not slow cars down. The stop sign is to delineate right of way. That is a federal standard. Okay, we cannot just throw stop signs. There are other things we can do though, and I have a lot of experience in traffic calming. I did a lot of this in Florida, a lot of out west, and so I do have experience in that. And I would glad to give you some suggestions. But stop signs, if they're warranted, that makes a lot of difference. It has to have certain volumes to make that work. And if the traffic's balanced and there's sight distance problems, there's a lot of things we can interject. Just throwing stop signs in for speed control doesn't work. That's what the traffic engineer popped out. Sorry.
No. Hey, that's why we want. And
Yeah.
hey, we're going to be tapping you there for that traffic calming. And that, what'd you say, 40 years experience?
Yes, sir.
No,
About 43 years.
Yeah, that's
He started when he was 12. He started when he was 12.
So, a young guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I turned 71 this year. So
That's young, right?
yes, sir. I got another 5 years to go working.
right.
Trust me, I had kids late in life. I'm going to be working a while too. So, hey, Buck, you might talk about, then as we move south here, College and Daugherty. And by the way, Christina was going to host a little polling about how badly I say Daugherty or how non-Georgian.
I was just going to ask everybody there in Athens if you said it right, but it's fine.
I know I didn't say it right.
So this is the intersection of College Avenue in Dougherty. And you can see that there's a four-way, I'm sorry. You can see that there's a four-way pedestrian crossing. This kind of serves as the gateway right now into the North Athens downtown. You can also see the green bike box. Carol, I was hoping you could kind of explain to the group a little bit about the purpose of the bike box.
Sure. The bike box is there, so if you're coming down on that lane, on the bike lane on the right, and you're going to make a left turn, it gives you an area as a cyclist to move over to get ready to make that left turn.
Great. Okay, Brian.
Let's go to the next slide. So, hey, and this some people have already talked about it, and I kind of hinted at this. So in the intro, I said that we've done both community surveys, and we did a in-person resident survey. So as of August the 3rd, these are 82 responses. Ongoing, again, the community one is still live. and the resident one, we're still continuing. But I'm not going to go through the whole thing because there was 80. I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions, right? But some really pertinent things came out of this, especially related to College Avenue. And I just want to share a few of them. One was, you know, how important is crossing College Avenue to Lake Park and other resources. So you can see 85% of people said that it was extremely important, that their family regularly crosses College Avenue. And then, and this ties into what a lot of other people said. The next one highlighted there, the 25 to 51%. Where do you cross? And I'm having technical issues here. I'm switching here. Well, I'm not hearing. Hey, Buck, why don't you can you take this for a second?
Yep, I can, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think we were talking about item number 5. We're due, and this is resident surveys, where do residents usually walk across College Avenue? And Kelly, to your point, 25.6% of the people surveyed said that they cross typically at Madison and College Avenue, and then 51% typically cross at the intersection of Strong Street and College Avenue in front of Hotel Indigo. And then question number 17, what would make your walk around or hang out in North Downtown area more frequently? And Katie, this kind of speaks to something that you shared, is 11.1% said that they would enjoy safer and wider sidewalks. 19.8% people said that better lighting along College Avenue. So Katie, you had pointed out that things kind of looked a little sketchy, right?
Yes, and I felt like if I walked in front of the Hotel Indigo, I felt a little like I was lit up, a little safer on that side of the sidewalk versus the side that runs up against Bethel. You know, and then Hoyt Street as well. And then if it's later at night in that parking lot at the that clinic right there, or I think the health department, I forget what that is right there on the corner, and that's completely empty and not well lit. You know, it's just that whole area. I've spent a lot of time walking back and forth for several years when I was in the service industry and working downtown. And every time, you know, even my fiance would be like, call me when you're walking, because it was dark and it wasn't, right. It did not feel safe, for sure.
Yeah.
And really, if you combine that 11 and 19, really we're talking about 30% really want safer streetscapes.
Absolutely.
Can we go to the next slide? And this just kind of talk about, from a complete street point of view, what people want. And so really there's a lot of diversity and mix of use that people, that's kind of what we're pointing out. And the other thing, the bottom question about the feel, extending the feel of downtown Athens, and really 64% want to have the quality and appearance. I mean, that's really important to them. And 86%, it's about the better housing. And again, you can still see about 20% sidewalks, and then services comes in pretty heavily down there. Next. So I'm going to let Buck, and also I'm going to call on some of Carol and other, some of our guest speakers are much more in tune with this than we are.
Yeah, so this is a snippet from the Athens in Motion Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan. Carol, I know that you know this inside and out, so I'm going to rely on you to kind of share a little bit about what the vision was along the College Avenue corridor. You can see here the College Avenue was ranked in the Tier 1 bicycle projects. Carol, can you kind of tell us a little bit about what you guys envisioned?
Well, it's, you know, just getting out larger in this. The Athens in Motion, for people who don't know, is basically a bike and sidewalk plan for the whole community. Interestingly, I've just been working on a PowerPoint myself for a presentation that we're doing next week, and that we hope to do more often in the community. And the focus of Athens in Motion is the goal is to increase connectivity through the community, and College Avenue would be a wonderful place to get down to, you know, from the Greenway and East Athens over into downtown. Another goal is equity, making sure that neighborhoods don't get left out, and especially neighborhoods that have been left out in the past. Another goal is getting more users, getting more people out walking and biking, and then getting things to actually happen rather than just being in a book. And then also educating and encouraging people to ride more. And the College Avenue is just, I mean, I went and looked in here just before, so, you know, you helped me out here by doing this. There's also a sidewalk project along there as well. And this is just like a great opportunity to, you know, further enhance this, this whole plan that goes throughout the community. So that is a tier 1 project. And it's important to know that the projects there's actually, I think there's about 220 bike and sidewalk projects altogether, and they're tiered according to different priorities. And one has to do with equity issues, another having to do with connectivity, closeness to public facilities, and prioritization. So this is, you know, I'm looking at this and I'm going, oh, this wonderful College Avenue's right in there. We've got this project going on. And I know that goes all the way down to.
Well, can we see the next slide?
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Well, not yet. Well, we've got an exhibit that we're going to show that actually points it out.
So, and you know, the Athens in Motion person inside of me is like, oh, how can we make that go all the way down to the Greenway and make that connectivity there as well? So.
Thank you. That's some really great insight, and that's really what we're looking for. So what we've started doing, and again, these are not fixed. These are just what ifs, some little programs and ability of just kind of mocking up streetscapes and mocking up. And we've tried to honor the Athens in Motions and the plan and the street section. And so these are kind of telling of taking what Buck was talking about, existing conditions, but also if we put in everything that we're talking about in terms of drive lanes, potentially parking lanes, sidewalks, 14-foot multi-use trail there, you can see there's an increase in the right-of-way. It kind of all doesn't fit. It's in fact, Steve, you mentioned that earlier, right? Sometimes people put things in and you ended up with like 8-9-foot drive lanes. And so we've got those kind of conditions. And maybe parking is not there. Maybe things have to be, or maybe there's some dedication, but this is just, it's kind of telling and showing the conditions and if we continue those multi-use trail, the implications. We know there's a commitment, and Buck, I'll let Buck speak a little bit on this, but commitment to having protected bike lanes is a big commitment that we've heard over and over again.
So I want to say that Stephen Bailey's raised his hand.
Yes.
Oh, thanks. I was just going to add on to what Carol had said, you know, that College Avenue is this incredible north-south connector for active transportation, and not only just from, you know, the Greenway down to downtown, but also connects campus at that point as well. And it's actually the site of the Envision Athens subgroup, Move Athens transportation group, is really trying to focus on an open streets event. Now, it was going to be this year. Of course, that's not going to happen with COVID, but for next year, really focusing on an open streets event, and College Avenue is at the top of the list of where that could really be shown as this example of connectivity between communities for all modes of transportation.
No, and we second that, and we feel the same way that College Avenue it can be an example for the whole city, really the whole nation, and how to do a great street. It has so much going for it. I just want to say there's some guys here in Dallas, and I've seen some, you know, sort of they've got, you know, guerrilla urbanists of some of them, but you know, people have kind of temporarily staked things out, temporarily put things in place to kind of show what might happen. literally putting some cones up or taping down. I've seen taped and things. So there might be some kind of creative things that we could help kind of put in place. So just to show the what ifs, the physical what ifs. But fundamentally, what these are showing again are we've got to deal with just some dimensionally, some physical constraints. I see somebody raising their hand.
Matt has his hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to add, and I appreciate that you guys have shown the trail down from the Council on Aging and Pulaski Heights, that Pulaski Heights Trail. And that's another plan to be aware of, and that's the Greenway Network Plan. Of course, that trail stops at the railroad because we've never been able to get permission to go under it from the railroad owner other than CXS. But anyway, that's obviously a resource for consideration as you go through this process.
Well, yeah, thank you. And it's almost as if we planted you in the audience, right, for these kind of input, because we are aware of some of those, and we're going to be reaching out to people like you that know even more about it than we do. But you're right. There's continues to be a lot of opportunities. So
yeah,
let's go to the next
Brian,
slide.
I was just going to make the same point that Nat was making about that. I do want to just mention in terms of cycling and down at that far end, which is outside of the site we're talking about. But one of the things is that's quite a steep hill. So I love the idea also of using some different way of getting down there, because it's not an easy place to climb up from the bottom from the Greenway.
And we've heard that over and over again as well, especially, seniors, the Center for Aging is down there, and seniors have expressed that, as you go down Hall or you go down Hoyt, there's quite a bit of topo drop, right? And so that's kind of a hike down there.
You could have like a pulley to pull people up.
A little funicular, right? Though we actually had a resident who's really into fitness who does her hill runs there, and Christina and I were pretty amazed, because that's a good little run up a hill there. Let's go to the next slide.
This is Ian with Columbia. I just wanted to plug the Parks and Open Space session in terms of the Greenway connections. We're going to be talking about that later tonight at 6:45.
That's right. That's what I was saying. We've got some plants in the audience, Ian. Hey, and with the complete streets, remember, this is complete streets, right? It's not just Bethel Village side, but we need to look at College Avenue in the whole, both the east and the west sides. And so some of that land is the fire station, the fire hall, and there has some ability, and then the indigo is set, but we've got to think of this completely in both sides. Next. So again, so some of the things that just kind of came up, again, these are the what ifs and throwing against the wall. A College and Hoyt would be just changing some texture, adding pedestrian crossings, things that might texturally slow things down and create more emphasis on pedestrians. And perhaps some RRFBs, which are there's an image there of just the flashing lights. I'm probably going to butcher it right, but essentially smart crossing. I'll let Buck get into here on the technical side.
Yeah, so I mean, most of the folks on the call in our community are probably familiar with the RRFBs. They're the same crosswalks that we have on Prince Avenue that we've installed along Cedar Shoals and around town to call attention to pedestrian crossings.
And lighting and signage. Again, we've heard that this afternoon. We heard it in surveys. We experienced it at firsthand in observations. It's just, the whole area needs to be better lighted, better streetscape lighting. Next slide. And again, this sort of College in Madison, we actually heard surprisingly, back to those kind of resident surveys, more people cross at College in Madison than Hoyt, and more people cross at Strong than both of those. And so, one idea is that maybe there's a redirecting of where the front door is of this whole development. Maybe Madison, we also heard, surprisingly, and we're going to get into this on civic exploration, the community really looks at that fire station as a community center. Apparently the kids love to cross over there, and they hang out with the firemen, and they buy snacks from the vending machine. And, you know, we'd like to foster that sense of place and arrival. But again, it needs to be a safe crossing place. You know, we need those smart crossing, lighting, signage, kind of all the tricks of the trade, as Steve was saying. In fact, we'll probably be dragging Steve in left and right here to help us on that. And College and Strong. Also, we think it will be even more important, but the survey says it's already got a lot of crossing on it. So how do we make it safer and better? How do we make it safer in the short term? And how do we ultimately make it a much better intersection?
Can I add something real quick about the RFBs?
Of course.
We started these probably about 6 or 7 years ago in traffic engineering. And to make sure that we were getting a good product, we had the police department do some testing. And the first time we did it, they issued several warnings for people not stopping for pedestrians. The last time we did it, which was about a year, they give no citations. Everyone obeyed. And the more of these we have, the more the people are accustomed to them. They are a miracle. They work great. And ironically, the state of Georgia, DOT, did not want to use these. Now they're everywhere on state roads.
Yeah, I mean,
Athens was a leader of that.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, one of the things that you've always kind of taught me and I picked up on is consistency across the community. And that's really what we want to do.
Yes, sir.
So, and that's a big point. You know, our goal is to push the envelope, but also we want to leverage existing initiative, existing ideas that have already come up through the community. You know, and sometimes it's not reinventing things, but just encouraging and continuing. So I really appreciate that kind of input, and we will be reaching out to you and others all through this process. Just for the sake of keeping everything going, although if we need to run over a little bit, people are free to come and go. That's kind of why we had buffers, and we started a few minutes late. But as someone mentioned, we are aware of the Pulaski Creek Trail extension, right? And how it just sort of ends down there, right? And we've looked at it. I'm going to let Buck talk a little bit about, there's just some topographical issues going on there about how it might extend. And we're throwing this out. Again, this is what sticks on the wall kind of, but exploring the idea perhaps that we kind of bring it up to grade and create Hall as a more parkway kind of environment. And so, and that way, that actually gives us the ability to have some neat sort of trailheads, gives us the ability to perhaps use some of that land that is in there. We've been talking to the Center for Aging for some other things. There's some neighborhood-wide water quality and water things that need to be done, and that is a low spot. This idea of bringing that parkway up along to Hull Street is something that we've been exploring and kind of throwing out here. And I'm gonna let Buck kind of talk a little bit more about some of the details, and he can elaborate. But
yeah. So Nat, you feel free to weigh in. You know, when we looked at this first, and we looked at the master plans, right, for Athens in Motion, we looked at the Greenway master plan, and really trying to figure out how we can make this site fit in to all of those, you know, visions that the community and committees such as yours had really put a lot of effort and time into developing. And when we looked at Pulaski Creek Trail, you know, the thought was that, you know, the planned alignment goes along the stream and connects to Dougherty Street between Denny Towers and the Presbyterian Church. But we also know that there's steep grades. There's some topographic limitations to that alignment. And so one of the things that we kind of wanted to throw out there and get some feedback on is, you know, if we brought that trail up along Hull Street and maybe had some viewing platforms that overlooked Pulaski Creek, and then that would also connect directly to the existing crosswalks and RRFBs at the intersection of Dougherty and Hull Street. So what's the thoughts?
You know, can you hear me?
oh yes, yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We looked at that in a little more detail 2 or 3 years ago now, and came to the same conclusion, basically, that Hoyt Street was the best coming up to that grade, with some separation for the experience sake. But that really is a connector to the main course of the Greenway down on North Oconee River. So there's a lot more leadway with these connectors, and I think that makes a lot of sense, what you're talking about, to sort of incorporate it more into the cityscape. It is interesting, the Greenway and the playing Athens in Motion differ in a little bit of a way, and that the Greenway is mainly about getting people to the river system and having that environmental and natural experience. So we also recognize, though, it's an important transit opportunity too. But anyway, in those discussions, that subtlety between the goals of Athens in Motion and the goals of the Greenway differ a bit, but they're very compatible, really.
That's great. That's great feedback.
Yeah, thank you. That's some really great insight, and we're going to be picking you and others' brain, I'm sure, a lot more. I'm glad that it's kind of reassuring to hear that we kind of came to a similar thought. So it's just, there's just some natural topography that make it incredibly challenging.
Very challenging.
And we think with that, and I'm also now putting on the urban planner hat, that as we propose a vision, it can help us also create building edges and eyes on the street. And so it becomes an active way and not a just hit, like the photos you see there of Hull now, it's almost just sort of hidden away there and not well lit. And so we want to do everything we can to improve that. Let's go to the next slide. Well, and the next slide is questions, which is kind of right on time. So really want to ask, hey, did we hear all the concerns? Did we miss anything? I mean, this is, and I love how everybody's been speaking up there, and that has really been our goal. And again, we're recording all these comments on the side. And so if, somebody wants a one-on-one meeting or wants a follow-up or wants further details, leave it here or go to our website, and leave us comments. But again, so, hey, any questions, any concerns? Come on.
No,
So we
right
got it all
Criticize
right.
how I'm going to get I'm going to get it right at some point here, but
Do I get to call out folks, Brian? Is that?
yeah, I'll let you do that, Buck.
Commissioner Thornton, are you with us?
She is or was. Let's see.
Or was. She may not be able to hear us. So, Jennifer
She's on.
Lewis, how do you feel? What are your thoughts?
I think it's good. I think y'all have did a really good job of explaining what Complete Streets is, and it's nice to hear that there seems to be a consensus that that's a focus that we can really have the opportunity to put in place on this street. I love the attention on kids and bikes and coming across College as well as up and down College. I was just thinking to myself, I couldn't remember from the first map how much we could extend this Complete Streets. Could we go along Hoyt towards the Lay Park area with sidewalks and bike lanes, or is that intersection of College and Hoyt kind of the parameter that we have to stay within?
That's a great question. And Buck, maybe the question's for you or others on the call, like where does the Jackson Street Art Walk plan stop? Is it just Jackson Street? Does it go out anywhere? I mean.
Well, I can talk a little bit about that. My name is Helen Kirkendall, and I'm on the Cultural Affairs Commission and did a lot of the work for that particular project for SPLOST. And we did really focus our efforts on that corridor along Jackson Street, but recognize that Hoyt Street is such an important connection because of the Lay Rec Center and the Linden House and then moving over into the residential area. And so it just seemed like a really important connection to make. Although in my efforts in putting all that together, I did hear that, as you guys have heard, that Madison and Strong were really right now the primary crosswalks. But I think there's a lot of value for strengthening Hoyt Street.
It's interesting. So I also want to point out we have a comment noting that they'd like to see the return of Strong, Madison, Hull, and Hoyt streets as they were historically defined in this area.
And we heard that prior too. We've been hearing that over and over. And that ties into some historical discussions we're going to have later too, and ties into a lot of things. So that's good to hear that. And I agree, Helen, with that, you know, even though Hoyt might not have a lot now, we may improve it. And then there's something also you said for just dissipating the amount of crossing. So no one place has too much crossing. And that in itself is a safer environment. And I was trying to, I've actually got that Jackson Street art plan, but you know, let's don't let the technical gremlins, I'm sure if I tried to share it, something would crash on me here, so.
Well, you know, we had similar thoughts about each one of those crosswalks would be, you know, a safe and comfortable pedestrian experience, making those connections across, and that not any one of those was going to be really controlled or more important than another. I felt like it needed to be a lot more integrated from a pedestrian standpoint.
That's good comment.
We also had a request to make sure we are able to post the slideshow itself. So not just the video, but the actual presentation.
Okay.
So yes, we'll make that available on the website.
Okay, we will, thank you.
Sure.
We wanted to make sure we did put the videos as well, so that, because there's a lot discussed in it, you know, and somebody can sit there in the middle of the night in pajamas and watch it and see what's going on. But we will post all of this. I just want to kind of talk about the next steps. So, you know, we are the first box here. There's another coming up tonight, Parks and Open Space, that you guys we already had the plant in the audience here that already kind of teased that one. And tomorrow we've got a busy day, and then Saturday we're talking about some art and history, and we're going to wrap up around noon to 1 and just kind of summarize everything that we kind of hear through these sessions. So then I just want to show the next slide, because I haven't said it enough, but I'm going to say it once more. But our website, go to our website. You know, that's where we will post these recordings. That's where we will post the presentations. And there's a lot there already. And that's at the bottom there are different ways to get in touch with us. And if you're social media savvy, our hashtags down there, you know, tweet it, gram it, whatever, that you're having fun or not. But we're on Facebook and Instagram as well.
I just want to, I guess I just want to ask from a host perspective, did anybody have any technical issues in registering or getting online at all? Please speak up so we can fix that. Okay. And then I'm going to make sure that we, you know, fix any of that. And then also, yeah, he said visit the website, but if you could also just share the rest of the sessions that we're going to be hosting, we would love to see this big of a crowd in all of them. And now you can let people know that you actually can talk to us via the Zoom call. So if you could share those links, that would be excellent. And so we can keep the dialogue going and making sure as many folks are engaged in this as possible.
Yeah, so it's been quite a pleasure kicking this off. You know, it's quite a transition. And so I won't share my technical struggles that a speaker went out, but I had trouble earlier, and I was warned by Christina and them not to cuss on session. So, because I was cussing before and not realizing it was being broadcasted. So we fixed that. We fixed the personal technical issue.
If your
there's
audio
always something, right?
Doesn't mean we can't hear you. That's an important
exactly.
thing to know
There's always some gremlins that like to come through on these things, but It's been really fun. And again, our next one is coming up at 6:45 tonight. Again, I'll just point out that we tried to do these at different times. And that is so that we could just appeal to everybody, knowing not everybody is available at every time. So there's a range of times, right? And like I said, they're going to be posted and you can look at them at any time. So, hey, I appreciate it. And it's so glad to see everybody and great comments.
Thanks,
Brian, Christine, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Avita.
Ms. Avita.
And thank you, all the people who
Thank you, guys.
joined us. We really appreciate it. We need your
Absolutely.
input. Thank you.
All right. Enjoyed it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.